Malek, this last semester, I was grading a bunch of student presentations and I had 80 of them. I stopped actually mid-slide because I couldn't tell anymore. I couldn't tell if I was looking at a student's original thinking
Hmm.
or something that's been polished, restructured, and maybe even generated by AI. And here's the thing, it was actually good. It was really good. And that's what scared me.
Well, I think that's the era that we're in now, right? The early days, first gen AIs, it was pretty obvious. And now these are the questions that it feels like we don't want to say out loud because we've all been in that moment, whether, it's a work that we've submitted, students submitted, or where the educators reading it, or even the employers, the managers on the other side of a table wondering, did I hire an actual person to do all this work or did I hire the prompt?
And that's exactly where today's conversation lives, because we're in this really strange and beautiful and terrifying, I think, in between moment in education. There's
Mhm.
a whole generation of students right now who's who are earning the most prestigious degrees in the world, Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, and AI is sitting in the chair right next to them in every class and every study group. And every late night before a deliverable is due, and nobody has really fully decided yet whether that's acceptable. Is it collaborating? Is it the new norm? It's all up in the air, right? There's a lot of ambiguity around that.
So that's the question that Rima and I have asked ourselves. Who are the people that are living this in the front row right now? Not theorizing about it, not writing op eds in theoretical ways, but really living with it. And who are the students that are finishing up their degrees, whether they're undergrads or top MBAs in the top business school and in the world, walking into prestigious firms, elite firms, and having to figure out in real time what's theirs and what belongs to the machine.
And here's how we found Taimur Siddiqui. Taimur is a Canadian Pakistani student at Harvard. He's a second year MBA. He's graduating this May 2026. And then he's heading back into the world of business, a place where really your entire value comes down to judgment, pattern recognition, and the ability to actually see what others miss. So the question becomes, in a world where AI can actually analyze 1,000 deals before your coffee gets cold, what is the thing about you that still matters?
Thanks for being here with us, Timur.
Thank you, Malak and Rima. So excited to have this conversation.
So, by way of background, you have experience working in private equity, investment banking. As Rima mentioned, you're from Canada. So, you've lived in this triangle of high performance, high prestige, high deal activity area, Toronto, Boston, and New York. And you've sat overlooking consumer goods as well as the investment banking side, private equity side. What are you seeing now that you're back in the student seat that you weren't seeing when you were in the professional seat?
Yeah, well, it's a great place to start. And I think like the best way to start is by going back to when I started my professional career, which was I graduated out of like undergraduate university in Toronto in 2020. So it was an interesting time in its own case to start your career through COVID. My first job was like in investment banking. It was virtual. But at the time we had no AI tools and I think deal activity was still really hot. So the first sort of 4 years of my career, both in investment banking and private equity, were all, so to speak, like AI light or like had little presence of AI. So I think the combination of being mostly virtual meant that like you're doing a lot of analytical work, you're spending a lot of time in Excel, PowerPoint, like building all those foundational skills,
Mhm.
which were incredibly valuable as I head now into business school. So I got here at Harvard Business School in 2024. That's around when AI was just starting to kick off and get like popular. I think ChatGPT was really the only tool that I was using as I was entering in business school. And I remember folks were kind of like, okay, are we going to use this? Are we not? Like, this doesn't seem that valuable. Like, maybe I can go put a case in it, but like, what's it really going to get out of it for me? Um, and now sitting here 2 years later, it's crazy to see where we've gone. And we went from like a school in a lot of ways that was kind of brushing it off and saying, okay, like, I don't know if we need to think about this or not, to very quickly radically changing courses, changing the way that we do our work. And it's totally 180'd in every single way possible. I don't think there's a day or a class or that goes by without me and students thinking about like how AI is impacting this business or this industry, how we're thinking about our own coursework, how we're using it, all that sort of stuff.
So, was there official guidance that you saw change from the university to the student and faculty?
Yeah, so I I don't know the rules as well as I should off the top of my head, but I think like when we started at school, it was something where we were encouraged not to use it or perhaps like experiment with it a little bit. And we went from that very quickly to, okay, look, like we're starting to embrace it at school. We want you to use it, and we encourage you to do so. And I remember in my first year, credit to the team here, we used to have a data science class
Mm-hmm.
that was teaching us VBA and R squared and SQL. And very quickly, in the span of a few months, they 180'd that course to be an artificial intelligence course. And now that's like a full course where students are learning how to use tools like Cursor, Replit, Lovable in class and actually getting like hands-on integrated experience. So across the board, like students here feel like a lot more agency to actually use those tools. I won't say it's perfect. I will say that there's a lot of like classes where we still have, okay, like this is something that we don't suggest you use AI for, and I wouldn't be surprised if students were still doing that. But we're still definitely trending in the right direction.
Mm. You know, Timur, there's students that are 5, 6 years younger than you who have
Mhm.
never perhaps written a first draft alone. Does that make you worry about who's coming up behind you?
Absolutely. I think about this a lot. Like in my like finance related classes, right? It's very easy to now go put your like practice tests or practice exams and like into AI and use that as the way that you study rather than actually like doing that exam yourself, right? And like for someone like me who's done investment banking, private equity for 4 years, like maybe that is like a good tool or like a faster way for me to study. But if I didn't have that like base of like 4 to 5 years of like the pre-AI world, I really worry about like the muscle memory that people will have or build as they get to like use these tools because I do feel like to a certain degree I have a sense of like what is right or wrong coming out of a model or like what might like I might expect if I'm like using it for the first time, you know, and like I think the people who are coming behind me who are like 100% AI native and learning skills from the ground up in an AI native world. It's just totally different, where it's a lot harder to identify what it is that you know yourself and what the AI is telling you.
Yeah, and you can't tell. You said something critically important, which is you already have a sense of what you're expecting as an outcome,
Yeah,
right? If you don't have that experience, you hadn't done those reps, all those years of that practice, you can't validate what the AI tells you as being, yes, this is legitimate, credible, appropriate answer or not.
absolutely. And like I will also add though, I want to be like show some humility and like my own skill set here where there's still so many domains and like new classes and things that I'm learning about where I don't feel like I have a foundational skill set. Like if I'm in a marketing class and using AI very aggressively, like am I really getting that foundational skill set that I wanted to come to business school to develop myself? Like what is like the knowledge that's sitting in my brain versus not? And also like some of these tools and some of these like um, products that you're using, they start to displace like your own mind in some ways, right? Like some of these things like adding and counting are kind of like riding a bike and you might not actually ever forget them. But a lot of the other things that you do on a repeated basis, like writing emails, writing essays, all that sort of stuff, like I view it more like working out, where it's like, you know, you can run like a mile really fast if you train every day, but like you stop running and you might not be able to run that mile as fast. And like there's a lot of those tools where I really worry about like the cognitive offloading and like things that I'm starting to do more and more with AI that is like taken away from my own personal skill set.
Mm-mm.
So, one of the things that we do with our classes in the undergrad is we carve out areas within the lessons to say this might be a good use case for AI. So, for example, if you're doing like audience research or market research on a particular type of profile, and so kind of encourage the students to get comfortable and be open about using it. But what are the ways that, to your point, hopefully doesn't diminish the cognitive experience and take away from your intellectual capacity to grow, learn, and continue to do new things as needed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I think all of our exams are still kind of no AI use.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that to be pretty valuable or a better way to conduct exams for that reason. So
Mm, mm, mm. You know, Timur, educators are people who have built their careers around a certain kind of rigor and a certain way of thinking. Do you sense that some of them are grieving something? And if so, what is it?
yeah, look, like I think I think it's so interesting, right? Like if you've done like or if you taught like a strategy course for 30
Mhm.
years, you have like an idea about how strategy should be thought. You have frameworks that is like been around for forever and you want to continue to teach those and teach those in ways that that are comfortable to you. And it's like a very foreign concept to now have a chatbot that can like be a strategic consultant that's effectively as good as you and has all that knowledge base and like can use it like an encyclopedia and actually like debate with students and all that sort of stuff. So I think there is a little bit of like fighting personal friction,
Mm,
but I think that's just a little bit of the direction that the world is heading in, admittedly, right? Like I think like the challenge to Harvard Business School and like educators around the world that I would push is like I don't think we just need like AI courses to teach us what the tools are. I think we need AI native curriculums where like I can actually say in every single class like here is how like strategy should be taught with the context of the tools that we have today. Because if not, then I think like it's not doing so like where society is heading and where technology is heading.
mm,
How do you see, you started your
Yeah.
career, as you mentioned, it was not really an AI world yet.
Yeah.
You started pre-AI ubiquity. You came to grad school. During grad school, it changed 180 within the 2 years that you were there. As you're getting ready to go back into the corporate world, have you seen or heard from your employer or other friends who are rejoining firms, guidance or appropriate uses that they're setting as direction for the employees?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like formal like knowledge transfer of here's the tools or training that I should be thinking about and doing has
Mhm.
been not as common just as yet. But I will say it's like definitely top of mind for everyone at business school. So like the notion of being like the 10x consultant, investor, product manager, the engineer, I think is a pretty consensus view across from students. And I think that like while you're sitting in an MBA seat, you don't have like an IT department or a compliance department that's going to stop you from using like any given tool, and you have all the agency in the world to experiment with them all. So I'd say there's a very, very strong experimentation culture while you're still sitting in the seat while at business school. I'd say the transition point is like understanding which tools, which firms are adopting and at what pace. And I think some firms are very, very quickly like adopting to things like, okay, yes, we're gonna have like a full suite like use of name your tool. And other firms, I think, are facing a little bit more red tape, right? So that's like an interesting conundrum to like navigate as I re-enter the workforce is and students at Mass re-enter the workforce is they don't actually have a good perspective on like what tools the firms are using and not, and like there's pretty disparate views. So if I get really good at using Claude Code in Excel and I join a firm that is like not gonna me use Claude Code whatsoever, is that good time for me to spend training myself to do Claude Code, or should I like just be using Excel without it as like a training mechanism? I don't really have a good answer to that, but it is like definitely a friction point where I think students really want to use all the tools that are possible, and it's not always in a firm's DNA to like be able to implement or even possible for a firm to implement every tool right as it's being rolled
mm,
out.
mm, mm. Timur, I've been in conversation with a lot of my colleagues across business schools, and something that we're seeing is a lot of graduating both seniors on the undergrad side and second year MBAs are walking away on May without a job offer. And that's created a lot of anxiety and concern amongst, and rightfully so, I think, amongst the student population that are pursuing business school degrees. Do you think AI has played a role in this? And just from your vantage point, because you're in it, right? You're in
Yeah.
these conversations with your friends, your colleagues. So what's going on? You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think this is like a little anecdotal because it's hard to measure in a more objective way. But like I would say most people do feel that today, where even with 2 to 4 to 6 years of experience or more, you still feel that firms are deciding if we were going to hire, I don't know, an investment banking associate class of 20 people in the past, we now have these said tools that can only require us to hire 15, right? So the magnitude of the shift might be like not as significant as entire roles that were there in the past, like being totally gone just yet. But I think there is like a softening across the board that is feeling that people are feeling. And I would just add that like I think for me, like I came from like a finance background and interested me in a finance background after business school. So like I feel like there's a lot of defensibility in my skill set and people can see that. There's a lot of folks who come into business school and want to pivot careers. And I think that's a little bit harder of a transition when you come into or you want to post business school be in a role that looks and feels a little bit more like an entry level role where I think like that's where you're seeing most of the pullback. So it's definitely like a stressor for a lot of students, and I think it's like obviously hard to measure, but we're feeling it for sure.
I just came across a really interesting story, and I couldn't help but parallel it with what's happening in AI. Are you familiar with Will Guardiola? He was the owner of 11 Madison Park, which for many years was the number one restaurant in the world. And he just published, I think it's his second book, Unreasonable Hospitality. I have a lot of appreciation for what he has built and the way he thinks about hospitality as a business differentiator in his work. But I think about it, how do you apply that to other businesses that don't look and sound like traditional hospitality businesses, right? So he talked about something he wanted to do, which was have every interaction with a potential guest be a human interaction. And what that meant was they didn't have online reservations at OpenTable or Resi or things like that. He wanted it all to be phone and human to human interaction. And at some point, his employees pushed back and said, have you ever called to try to make a reservation? Do you know what that experience is like? It's being put on hold. And then when you finally get through, there is no reservation available because they were the number one restaurant in the world and everybody would want to get that spot as soon as they became available. So he said humbly that he took that note from them. But then what he did, he didn't lay off the reservation department. He then took that reservation department and had them reskilled to actually have conversations with the guests before they came in to understand what is it that they were celebrating, what was the occasion, what is it that they could do to elevate that experience and make it that much more special for them. So I think about that in terms of AI and how we think, the easiest conversation is to reduce headcount. So if you reduce headcount, AI is doing the work. But what if we reimagine that headcount? What if we think about that headcount now possibly doing an extended service line for that business that didn't exist before, right? So this is just something I started thinking about once I read that piece from Will about, again, it has nothing to do with AI, but it does have to do with reallocating a labor group in your organization because the tools are doing a better job than what the experience with the human was and the friction that was there, and how much more of a pleasant experience with ultimately drives revenue and profitability could you deliver in that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I actually really love that anecdote, and I actually think that's probably where like the biggest opportunity lies for MBA students today is that when it comes to retooling and reskilling organizations, there aren't people like the younger generations are the ones that are the most tech fluent, the most comfortable using the tools, and are experimenting with the tools at school today. So as we re-enter the workforce, even if we're facing like a little bit of friction around what tools are used or not, we are tech fluent and we can be the ones to like raise our hands and say, I'm looking at this process and it feels like there's this tool that we can use to make it a lot quicker. And instead of being a 10-hour task, it can now be a 2-hour task. And just being the thought leaders behind some of this
Mhm.
stuff, I think is like a really interesting opportunity for a lot of MBA grads as they're coming out of business school today. Because I think when you're sitting here in school, you have a lot more time and effort and energy to go and actually reflect and think deeply about like what's going on in the marketplace, what are the latest things that are people using, and like think critically about what the use cases could be in a way in which when you're sitting in an institution, it's a little bit harder to do that, right? You've got all of your work on your plate, you know the processes that you're working on, and you've got like a team around you, and you're focused on the next deliverable and the next deliverable. And the technology is just changing at such a rapid pace where it's really kind of hard to keep up for everyone. But at least when you're sitting on the sidelines, so to speak, you might have a little bit more bandwidth to like think through things and like think about where like the opportunities might lie.
I love that framing. I think that is such a powerful way to think about our roles as they are shifting. Like, for sure, there is a shift, there is a change happening, but to help people think about how they can maintain some agency and really be at the leading edge of transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's like without even another thing we haven't really talked about yet is like the desire for entrepreneurship and starting your own businesses today. That is coming out of a lot of folks at the undergrad level, but then also at the MBA level, where you feel now that, okay, look, like I don't necessarily need to know how to code to build an app, or I don't need to know how to like do an Excel model to like actually create like a financial services tool or whatever. So there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of leverage that you get with these tools today if you get like really good with them too, to where you can pick up an opportunity today. You can spend 5, 6 months with it. You can really start selling things really quickly. Or there's just a lot of like funding available to you, whether you're within like an MBA ecosystem, you start to look around you, whatever else. And people are really excited and energized by that too. So it's not all of doom and gloom whatsoever.
It's never all doom and gloom.
Sure.
Sometimes, Timur, when we're in a state of discomfort, is to push us to innovate, to think
Mhm.
outside the box. And I think there's an opportunity there. So I love your framing and I thank you for that. I hope
Yeah.
that all the MBAs out there, if they're struggling or there's like anxiety around this, that they listen to this and they find some solace in that and really start thinking, all right, so like, what can I do? Like, there's no job offer, but I have all these skills, creativity, and the tools, right? So the possibilities are endless of what
Yeah.
we can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This has been such an eye-opening and uplifting conversation. Rima and I, by virtue of the work that we do, love to be in close proximity to the students and the way that you're thinking about the future, because you are absolutely at the front lines of shaping it, reshaping it, and setting the pace for what the next generations after you will look to for inspiration. Thank you so much for being here with us.
I had a ton of fun. No, thank you for having me.
So, as you know, we have a couple of standard questions that everybody gets asked. So, let's get into it.
All right. So, Timur, what is something that is making your life better?
Yeah, so I'm gonna shout out one AI tool in particular. It's called Whisper Flow, WISPR Flow.
Mhm.
Maybe you guys are nodding like you've used it
Yeah,
already, but
I use
just
it.
yeah, just for the audience. The AI dictation, it's an AI dictation tool that integrates directly into your phone and your desktop. And I'm sure we've all used dictation tools before, but what's been so great about this one is that you can use it across any different platform, and it really starts to understand how you speak, how you pronounce things. Like my name is super complicated and hard for people to pronounce. Like if I say it enough, like now it actually spells it right versus like most other dictation tools don't actually learn. And their marketing pitch, which I'm like really starting to believe now, is like most people can talk at 150, 200 words per minute, but you can really only type at like 50 to 75. So like at scale, when you start to do that really often, it's been like so cool for me to just like use. And like at first I was like, okay, whatever, it's just another dictation tool. But now all of a sudden, like I find myself using it anytime I'm prompting an AI or just like sending emails or even texts at times. It's super cool.
I will say that is one skill that I'm happy to lose, the typing skill, because the Whisper has been such a game changer in terms of consistency, spelling, etc. And to your point about it understanding proper spelling, I still get called Malice in my regular talk to text function. It still doesn't know how to spell my name, and I own the device. My name is all over the settings, the profile, etc. You would think by now it would have figured out how to spell my name properly, but
Yeah,
Whisper has done a great job in
yeah,
that
yeah,
regard.
yeah.
Okay, next question. We know you have really long days and nights with a lot of cognitive exertion. So, what is the snack that's fueling you?
Yeah, well, this is a great one. And like I think post Ramadan, like after being up late at night and like having your schedule recalibrated, it's actually been really top of mind for me. One very prominent one that everyone knows, but or like a fruit that everyone knows, but I like love and swear by is kiwis. They're one of the most vitamin dense fruits that you can get. And what's lesser known about it is that it also comes with like natural melatonin for it. For so folks who might struggle with sleep or have other like sleeping challenges or adjusting their schedule or whatever. I have one usually at night before I go, and it might be a little bit of placebo, but I love them.
I'm gonna try that. I never I never knew that part about the
Yeah,
kiwi.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
All right. So Timur, we come to our third segment, which is called fetish, which means rummage. So what's in your bag?
Yeah, yeah, gosh. So first I'm gonna shout out my bag, and this is not like a paid promotion whatsoever, but
Right.
it's my away bag. It's very sleek and elegant looking, and I feel like there's always the finance guys who've got like the super clunky looking big bags when they're walking into work or at an airport, and I found this one to be a little bit more sleek. So that's shout out number one. Number two, and I don't have them on me, but I wish I could show them, was my loop headphones. So these
Okay.
aren't like actual like AirPod type technology driven headphones. They're just like simple earplugs. And I've tried a lot of different ones, but when I'm on a long flight or if it's loud outside for whatever reason, like putting those in like actually helps me get to bed. So I love them.
That's great. My son just started using those because he has a roommate, and the roommate, sometimes they're on different schedules, as you know, and his roommate is a rower. So he gets up super early in the morning, and he has said that those loop headphones have made a big difference in his ability to sleep through his roommate getting up and out the door.
Absolutely. It's
So
always a roommate problem. That's the trigger. It was for me too. So
Well, that's so great to hear about you and how you're thinking about the future. And thank you so much for being here. If our guests wanted to stay in touch with you or learn more about you, where's the best place for them to go?
LinkedIn is always easy.
Okay. And we'll tag your LinkedIn in the show notes.
Awesome.
Thank
Timur,
you
thank you
again.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.